So hello, hope everybody is having a good moment at Palexpo. So it has been so far a very interesting morning with great presentations, great discussions. So I'm aware, of course, that this roundtable is the last obstacle that separates us from the lunch break. And it is indeed the part of the program where people start to flag and cannot remember exactly the difference between cryptography and cryptocurrency, etc. So we thought of this, and we decided to have the most exciting session now. So the topic we'll be covering for the next 40 minutes or so, so we'll of course leave about roughly 10 minutes at the end for the public to ask their question directly to our speakers, is ethic and perspective of IoT and blockchain on market economy. So you see now maybe more clearly why we intentionally scheduled this panel just a day before the opening of the World Economic Forum in Davos. So my first question is a sort of warm-up question. Maybe I will ask the public. So who thinks blockchain is a revolutionary technology? Please raise your hand. So we have a vast majority. Do you think it's a revolution? So what we see currently is that we are facing more kind of evolutionary technology. So why didn't we hit the famous 99.8% of the planet? So who would like to take that warm-up question first?
So if my microphone is working? Okay, cool. I think in my presentation I did talk about the 5 necessities. Many people in the audience and elsewhere would believe that some additional things from regulators and whatnot, they're kind of constraining that from happening. But the reality is that those 5 necessities, if they were to be there, they would be unstoppable. And you won't be able to have any single regulation to stop that. The intent of the blockchain is not to ask for permission. The intent of the blockchain to make any value that each and every one of you earned becomes like oxygen. You don't ask for permission anymore to utilize it. And same goes for your children and every single Homo sapien around you. Anything of value that you've earned belongs to you, and you no longer need to ask for permission. So that is unstoppable, and that is coming, and that you will not have to ask for government A or government B or certain regulators or whatnot. So I certainly think it's the technological elements that they're needed and not necessarily regulatory.
Does everybody agree? Do you have another opinion?
I largely agree. I think this movement is, I sort of take a little more philosophical approach where it's unstoppable. Because we try many different variations in the past, and what we're now seeing is it's a different packaging but the same motive in the box. In America today, the large part of last 2-3 decades, we've fought for equality. We've fought for many different sort of equal rights. What I'm now seeing is this is not about gender, it's not about race, it's about money. The people at the top have too much. Middle class is absolutely disappearing. And there's not much we could do about it because government, politicians are doing their best, but somehow the system is rigged. We all know it. It's hard to express in a politically correct way, but I believe that it is happening. So I think blockchain is probably the best solution out there. I just want to make a comment about your revolution versus evolutionary thing. What I'm seeing is humans always evolved, no matter what. It's just our nature. In that greater continuum of evolution, there's many revolutions. So it's how you extrapolate a certain data set. If you really extend it, then you see all the details. If you contract it, then you hide all the sort of details. So I think that we're going through a perfectly honest and then very natural process of corrective period. We need this, 2018 is an era of a huge bubble being burst into crypto. People blame a lot of ICOs. I also blame a lot of investors making uninformed, speculative decisions. And then they now look to government for some kind of saving grace. And I'm like, wait a minute, we caused it. It's a buyers and sellers, willing parties getting to the trade, and we created it. So why don't we eat it and then digest it and then go through the process?
But I think if you did have those 5 necessities at the beginning of 2018, you wouldn't have burst. You would have continued to make it to the remaining 99.8% of the planet. Wouldn't you agree? I mean,
I would not.
If you had a technology that it's capable of getting to the scalability that folks are hoping to get, that it doesn't have leakages like it does today, that it only requires 20-second install for people to install it, and it's truly peer-to-peer. I think I heard you whispering you would not, so please go ahead. Why wouldn't you?
I would not, because first of all, we had too much capital deployed into wrong hands. And this is the first thing, and this comes directly due to the lack of knowledge of the investors that got into the game because it was so easy just to make money on speculations, right? So they were funding the wrong side of it, right? So even though if we had, and I know many projects that have the great technology, that have maybe at least all the necessities that you talked about. But they don't have the.
Nobody has those 5 necessities. Not a single blockchain solution out there has the 5 necessities. So.
But you have many companies that are very close to it, but you never heard of.
Not a single one of them. Please name one. Which one is close to it?
I know at least 2
like
of them.
Like IBM might as well run Hyperledger, might run a database. Which one is close to it? Let's bring them on. Let's bring them into a debate. Which one is close to it?
Pure Mountain.
What do they have that is close, that they're able to get scaling that is mainly centralized? And
I'm not their chief architect, and I don't want to.
I'm just saying, it's like you can bring any single one of them that they claim that they got close to it on stage, and I'm more than happy to spend an hour with them to put them to shame. Not even a single one of them came close to it. Not one. Every single one. If you were to ask the processing. How is that peer-to-peer when you need to rely on a different set of people called miners or database or whatnot to run your processing? How is that efficient? And what's their incentive?
Mining
and how is that going to be
definitely not
interoperable
efficient.
with other systems?
Wait a second, Delphine would like to intervene.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm just thinking about kind of ethical implications we have behind that, because as an ethicist, I'm maybe having another kind of angle on this. What you say is that with these kind of 5 criteria, we are actually going to have blockchain-based systems that should be trustable in the end, right? What I still don't get in this whole debate is actually that I see quite a big difference between trust in the sense that we place it in human beings, in human-based institutions, and trust as we should see it in the end in technologies that run themselves, run on autonomous organizations, maybe even. I think from a kind of non-insider view, this trust seems quite different. I trust people because I know they are going to be held accountable at one point, maybe from a legal system or something.
That's right. Decentralization is great. I mean, in the sense that we're facing a democratic tool, but who's accountable at the end?
Exactly. That's why I know that I can trust the technology in the sense that it will make transactions work, they will be true. But does that mean that I have to place trust in it when I don't know who's going to be accountable in the end for an action? It's an open question. I don't know if you have an answer to this.
Do you trust when you inhale oxygen that is going to be exchanged in your lungs with the carbon dioxide?
Yes, so you want to say that technology is a natural fact in the end, basically.
Fantastic. That's what we're trying to bring to humanity. It's something that you cannot control by your mind. In the same way, it's not going to be controlled by your government either. When a single Homo sapien is going to exchange value, they're not going to have a certain central control to manipulate that. There's a protocol called the alveolus capillary protocol. How many of you are aware of that protocol, alveolus capillary protocol? Fantastic. We have 0.667% of the audience. That protocol is functioning right this moment and is responsible for exchanging billions of transactions per second in your lungs as you breathe oxygen, and it does the exchange fully decentralized without checking with your brain. It doesn't matter how much brain power you're gonna get, you can't stop it. That's how it works, and it works very well every single time, and that's what we're hoping to bring to humanity. And thanks for bringing this up. I mean,
just one little remark on this. I mean, with breathing air and having this protocol inside me, I don't have to trust anyone because this is something that has been naturally built. Whereas a blockchain-based system, as amazing, I'm absolutely with you that I think it's going to have amazing impacts, but it's still something built by humans, and in the end I have to trust developers. So are developers in that sense godlike? I hope not.
I mean, you bring in a phenomenal valid point, and I'm hoping that we will get to the point where you don't have to trust the same way you don't have to trust that your lungs are going to do that. It's a trustless system, and that's what we mean by trustless, is that it is going to do exactly what it's supposed to do, and nothing can change it.
Maybe one issue is that we can trust something we understand. So by now, I believe everybody has a clear opinion about what is IoT. I don't think it's necessarily the case with blockchain. It's a concept that is still, I mean, there is a lack of understanding. Don't you think this is a risk per se?
Oh, okay. So when it comes to IoT, so the IoTs will eventually play a huge role into the blockchain, but not yet. There hasn't been a single consensus mechanism that cannot be replicated by any one of you pretending to have like millions of IoTs in your basement. Meanwhile, it's just running out of a computer, running virtualized machines. That attack vector still exists on every IoT that is out there, and the only way to prevent it is having some centralized company that can actually help you to, we're going to give it a certain ID, but still a centralized entity. So there's not a single consensus mechanism that can actually prevent that from happening. There's some stuff that like I said earlier, I don't like to promote any of the products or companies that I'm associated with. But there's certain innovation in the TODA protocol that we are working on that does not solve the IoT problem, but it solves when people are moving around, because if you are dispersed geographically, there's something that can prevent an attack that is centralized. Somebody's pretending to be running those million machines and they are in their basement. And if you are in Paris, for example, running a transaction, and Christophe is in Paris, the likelihood for his machine to contribute to the computation is much higher because there is a constant in this world that cannot be exceeded. It's called the speed of light. So the likelihood for him and his network to get to you 51 times per minute is much higher than any machine or any basement that could be in Brazil or somewhere else. So that it can be prevented, but IoTs cannot, because they are already static, or many of them there are, and I'm not aware of any consensus mechanism that can prevent that attack vector. So
there is maybe a misunderstanding about IoT, but how about the lack of understanding regarding blockchain?
Okay, go
ahead. I think blockchain doesn't need an understanding. In order to be a mass-adopted technology, you don't need to understand it. You don't need to understand how protocols work when you log in into Facebook, right? This is the ultimate goal: is to have the user experience that that doesn't need you to understand the underlying technology, but you need to follow the right philosophy. You need to, if you're gonna have anything to choose from, because right now people only have Facebook and that's it. There's no other, there's none other current offer when it comes to social networks that would give you same features and greater benefits in terms of monetizing your data, in terms of not storing your data, and so on and so on. Once people are going to have that, they wouldn't care about the technology. They would just choose the right path.
So Delphine, are you comfortable with what just has been said?
Well, I agree that most of us, I, for example, don't know how the internet works. I still trust that it will work at one point. But as soon as I need to trust, to place trust in a system because I do transactions on it or stuff. For now, I trust it because I know that some intermediary is behind it that gives a standard for it, or that the government is kind of placing trust in that system and has made an audit on it. Like I kind of have these intermediaries behind it who guarantee that this system is going to be accountable. And I guess that's something that can be created in the end on any kind of blockchain system. But so far I'm satisfied, yes.
I think people trust in marketing right now.
Right.
This is how you follow your trust. You trust the slogans, you trust the brand names, and that's just marketing.
So Joshua, who do you trust?
Yeah, well, I agree with Christophe about you don't have to understand to trust it. I mean, it's not like vast majority of Americans actually understand the entire sort of electoral democratic election process, but it works. Also, the blockchain is a work in progress. I absolutely agree with the Tufi that even Bitcoin blockchain, there are a lot of flaws. Theoretically, it's flawed, but it serves for the time being. It kind of works, but it's not the best. It's very hackable. And then I think
it was the best when it was first.
Right.
But yeah.
And between 2017 and 2018, we probably, I don't even know how many billions, maybe 40, 50 billions dollars of tokenization capital went in. And maybe 70% got squandered, but 30% actually went into the right project, backing right entrepreneurs. There's a real innovations coming out. This will take, in my opinion, decades. But we must, because if we don't, then we have a choice between trusting a human being who is geopolitically let's just say motivated, versus a math formula that is immutable and unchanging. I mean, maybe many, many hundreds of years ago, we tried to trust emperors and kings. That didn't work. We created republic system. That didn't work. And we created this rule of law. That kind of worked. Actually works really well, but there are a few issues. Now we want to improve upon that. And now the solution that we're coming out with is something like consensus technology, like blockchain. It's also flawed, but it's better than, let's say, trusting an emperor. So we just keep making that evolutionary improvement. We will get there. It's just that we all need to calm down and just kind of sort of trust this evolutionary process.
And there's certain things that Josh alluded to, and so is Christophe, that I'm not sure if it resonated a lot with folks in the audience. When you're trusting that single entity that it's called Facebook, it's not that they are evil. Maybe they are today, maybe they're not. But the more and more you have to depend on a centralized entity, and the more and more power is being given to AI. So if you think financial system has some power and it was used as a method of control, and it's still being used as a method of control today. Any one of you live in a government that if your government is not okay with you, they can freeze your accounts, okay? So imagine that you are a single mom, false positive, one of the 100 single moms in the United States that they get accounts for as a false positive. They use that method as a method of control. Now imagine with the power of AI where it's capable of knowing you more than you know yourself. And it's capable of actually getting you to do things that you didn't even want to do. This isn't like some sort of fear of dystopia. This is happening today. And what these two gentlemen they're talking about might seem to be like, oh, well, we don't have to worry about it, whatnot. But wait and see. Don't do anything about it, and you will remember this day. There's no point of return. Many folks are in China here, and I heard that how And I get to speak with the Chinese government many times, and you guys get to ask me to come into China to speak many times because of the danger that is being deployed by what is called the social credit. And it is currently maybe impactful a little bit, but many of you, even your superior, even the people in the government, they're fearing of how can that be taken to the next level while people are managing it, of how you could impact the population and enslave them in the future if it's not enslaving them today. And that is happening today, okay? So if you wait, the rest of us here, we're sitting in Geneva and we don't do a lot about it, I think we might regret this moment. This is the time to do something about it.
So privacy issues,
Black Mirror is happening.
new human digital identity. Sorry, Delphine, you would like to intervene?
I know, I was just picking up actually on two things right now. So I definitely agree that decentralization will be a big benefit to most political systems and economic systems in general. I mean, we're Swiss, so for us decentralization is something we really value. And that's one of the great perks I see in this technology, that's for sure. Now, what I was interested in before in your comment, Josh, was that you said, yes, it's an evolution. So we're coming from the rule of law, which works fairly good. I would say even it's quite some innovation we had in the last few hundred years. So how are we going to manage, in your opinion, that we take this rule of law with us when we build consensus-based systems? That we have this whole kind of innovations we have now on human rights base, certainty of legal systems, that we have them later on as well, even though the system is decentralized and consensus-based.
You know, I just want to add something. The acceleration of technology is unstoppable, and there is no way to match current state of laws and regulations to match the advancement of technology. Go ahead.
And I agree with that. And also I agree with, I empathize what you're saying. Let's just look at how the US government is trying to regulate tokenization, ICO, for example. It's SEC taking a view that a token is a security. But if you talk to the commodities exchange guys, they'll view that as a commodity. If you talk to the certain bankers, they'll view that as a currency. If you talk to guys like me, entrepreneur, I will have an absolute view that this is a utility. So then a single digital asset can function as either security, commodity, currency, or utility. How do you govern that across 4 different agencies trying to fight?
Yeah.
They cannot even agree on very simple sort of policies these days, and you try to regulate something that is very difficult to understand. You said lack of understanding is creating this trust issue. That's exactly what's happening. The government is at a gridlock. It's at an impasse because they don't understand. And so when will they then understand? When will that time come? I think it's going to be
Will they need to? That's the question that I put in. That's our major disagreement, I think, earlier, is that the technology that is coming, that has all of those 5 necessities, will not ask the SEC for permission the same way you don't ask anybody for permission when you breathe oxygen. Right. You don't really need to. You're entitled for your own oxygen, okay? When it comes to anything of value that you have earned, if somebody wants to stop you from earning them because of some taxes or whatever, they can do it in advance. They can charge taxes in advance. But the moment you have earned anything of value, there shouldn't be anyone in the middle to stop you from utilizing that thing. And that is what this technology is enabling. And when it gets there, it's not going to be the SEC, it's not going to be any government, it's going to be, oh, we have a say in it. No, you will follow. The same way when email came, did not ask the mailman's regulatory things like, hey, are we going to be okay by disrupting you by, having something that is 99.9999% more efficient? That's what email did to mail. It didn't ask for permission. It just made it there. And that's what will happen over the next few years.
But still, when it comes to, for instance, the financial system, how do you deal with the anonymity issue? There is an anonymity issue.
And
If it comes to
that is
cryptocurrency,
a human right too. I mean, that's another thing that the world needs to evolve from being like your identity. It's not that your name is preceded by a number. Your identity is that your name can have many numbers. You're allowed to have many identities. You shouldn't be belonging to a certain government or a certain company that you are that number and that's it. You should be allowed to have whatever, persona. If you go to bar to dance, that's your personality there. That's your identity in that bar. If you go to Facebook, that's another personality. You go to work, that's another one. They should not necessarily be all the same thing. And that's the one thing that folks will not have a chance to have a say in it. The technology is going to enable that the same way anything of value. Your identity is a thing of value that belongs to you. It doesn't belong to your government. It doesn't belong to your company. It doesn't belong to any centralized entity like they try to do it today. So when you see solution coming with identity from Microsoft saying like, hey, we figured it out. We've got the identity problem solved. Come to us. Come on. The intent of the identity to be solved is to be solved in a decentralized setting, to give it back to the Homo sapien. If we philosophically don't agree to that, let's have the discussion in advance and don't take us into 99 different solutions showing us decentralized points, but yet you still have the button on one single centralized thing. It won't work.
Let's ask the question to Delphine. Can we interact with different faces?
But as it's coming this way, I actually felt it.
No worries, it was a very interesting answer. Well, in general, I would agree that yes, having some kind of anonymity is a human right, or at least privacy is a human right. But then again, complete anonymity is also a problem because, societies are based on having some kind of social cooperation. And for social cooperation, we need to trust at one point that the other people are going to do the things we expect them to do. And yes, on blockchains, we can solve some part of this trust, at least in the digital world. But in the end, you're still going to have criminals. This world you now presented is very, I like it a lot, actually. But you have criminal people out there.
100% agree.
Yeah.
The system is to enable the criminal and the innocent to breathe oxygen. But the system is not there to trace the criminals. If you want to trace the criminals, you can have a different system to trace the criminals. When we're trying to provide oxygen for everybody, what the world is doing it today, they're preventing the innocent from taking the oxygen. When you see 1,000 false positive in the United States, one of the best countries on the planet, 1,000 false positive every day, they freeze their accounts because there's a suspect of money laundering, but they're still doing their money laundering. So it's impacting the innocent. The technology is here is to provide it to, like you have oxygen. Do you want to stop oxygen because we suspect that somebody could be doing money laundering? So let's stop the oxygen intake for them and their family. Is that humane? No, find a different way. Knock on their door. I don't know. Arrest them. Do something. But just don't stop the oxygen intake for 1,000 people because maybe there's one person who's doing money laundering somewhere. That's the attack from within is being exploited over and over, and that's what we're trying to fix. There are criminals. Let's arrest them. Let's stop them. That's what the regulator's job is, to stop the criminals, not those two gentlemen that they're trying to bring in technology that is fabulous for the children of those regulators and children of everybody.
I just want to shift the gear a little bit to sort of address your kind of question about will the rule of law translate into blockchain? And I think it's a very, very good question. And my sort of thinking is the blockchain actually enhances it. Because when we think about this topic of ethics isn't some sort of 10 commandment-like kind of etched on stone and never changing, right? It's a consensus. If you really think about the core idea behind ethics, it's you and me agree to do good to each other, and if you come out of the behavior, you're a bad person. That's ethics. And that rule actually changes over time. What used to be ethical in Roman sort of empire time could be very different today. So again, it's a consensus. So blockchain gives you a tool to adapt and change and constantly evolve, as opposed to some kind of rules written on paper 200 years ago as if that is just unchanging. That doesn't work for me, because technology is demanding faster response. And we can't constantly look through the books and said code 135-6 and then let's look at another book.
Agreed. Agreed. Too much fiction.
It's not practical.
So,
Sorry.
Delphine, you wanted to say something?
Just a quick remark. Yes, rules on papers are there, but they can change. Actually, that's the whole
Sure.
parliamentary
Sure.
process is about.
Right.
And the second thing is, maybe that's partly due to my background, why I think ethics is that important. I'm just wondering how the execution of rule of law on a blockchain could look like, because as you said, it shouldn't be companies, private companies in the end, who have to enforce things. But at the same time, if you have a network that is completely anonymous, that guarantees this anonymity of people by design, how will any kind of government that exists then still be able to?
Yeah, so that's, I think, that is the question that we will need to address and answer accurately in order to prevent malicious people from exploiting it. And I 100% agree, but not preventing that system from happening.
So if I summarize, blockchain is a revolution, but it's more kind of incremental revolution.
It's ongoing.
Yes, blockchain from lab to market. We see there actually there is a gap, right?
It's a revolutionary technology, but I kind of disagree there. It hasn't yet hit it in a way that it's revolutionary.
Right.
You know, I think it's manifesting itself. I think what we have seen to date, if the last few years folks have noticed that there's like a wave, you know, if you're on the beach and you see like a wave, that's what you have seen. What's yet coming is more like a tsunami. So with that is not something that is a revolution.
Right.
And the revolution is an email, for example, was revolutionary to mail when it has 99.999% more efficiency. So that's coming, manifesting itself, and it's unstoppable.
So to make it a real revolution, so from lab to market, to fill that gap, actually, we need to have that sort of discussion, of course. So I think it's time now to move on to the more interactive part of the program. So I'll open the questions to the public. If anybody would like to ask a question to our speakers, so please raise your hand. I believe there will be microphones that we. So over there, the lady in the middle,
And the guy in the back. Yeah, there are two persons.
so whereabout? I can't see them.
Here, there's a
Okay,
guy.
okay, there are
Does
two
anyone with the microphone?
people
Would you like
there
to-
actually.
Yeah.
Would you like to come up?
Do we have microphones?
Yeah, come on up.
I'm sorry.
I'll lend you my microphone so I don't
Excellent.
get to...
Do we have microphones?
Thanks very much. Imogen LaPlante, I'm Chief Innovation Officer at Bernay Associés. Thanks very much for the discussion and especially the mentions of Einstein. I'm a physicist by background, so appreciate that, especially since Einstein didn't believe in ether. My question is actually for Joshua Hong, very interested in what you're doing with AI, and the basis for AI is really the data that we put into it, and that's very important for bias as well in terms of ethics. So I'm curious how you described a little bit about the ontologies on blockchain, how you use blockchain to solve one of the biggest problems for AI, which is data quality.
Yeah. Well, there are actually two different issues. One is how do you store and make that a communal property, and then how do you also keep the quality ones and take out the bad ones? And these are very difficult type of technical challenges, but we do have tools that are very embryonic that will allow us to do so. So for Mind AI, our goal is to separate the data from the actual reasoning engine and then make that communal property. No corporation, no government, not a single individual will own it. It's community owned. And the only and the best way that we know how is actually use of blockchain. We are looking for the best commercially available blockchain. TOTA protocol is theoretically awesome. And also we are looking for some interim solutions. So far, we're having a very difficult time finding it. But the theoretics behind it actually make sense. And the way it works is, let's say you want to put some kind of ontology that is, if you stab somebody, that person will bleed. I mean, if you're a human being...
If they're Homo sapien.
Right. Exactly. So then that fact, the indisputable fact as a tenet, will then get registered into blockchain. Then the blockchain will issue a hash. The hash will be then basically recorded to a wallet that is dedicated to that person. So then we create a certain, let's say, interface where people can continue to put this information. Imagine Wikipedia, except as you enter data, you're actually getting rewarded with our tokens. And then these tokens can be then tradable. So as an enterer of this ontology or information, you're using blockchain as a sort of a cryptographically encoded database. And then it's immutably stored. And then it could also identify which one's unique. If there's a lot of same information coming in, then it can sort of kind of parse that out. In terms of data quality, we could also create this incentive structure where this data that is being entered can be ranked based on usage. How often certain, let's say, information being accessed by our reasoning engine, and then it adds certain score. Based on the score, then certain information goes higher.
I'm involved in that a bit on two different layers, so full disclosure. I got involved with the Mind AI about a year ago. First as an advisor from AI perspective. So there's something that's called the HBGA, which is a human-based genetic algorithm by design that was built to be democratic. There's another design that made it more meritocratic. The model that Mind AI uses is called the crypto HBGA, which ensures that as the data evolving into the system, the incentive for people to make it better is always geared towards the positive. So if you were to ruin the data, you end up losing money. If you end up making it better, you end up making money. So over time, it keeps getting better and better. It's called crypto HBGA. Right. We coined that term about a year ago in one of the events we were together. So, yeah.
And this is what's really amazing about the tokenization process. People often confuse between securitization and tokenization. When you come into the tokenization side, it's not only you're creating a fractional ownership of an asset, but now you give intelligence to every interaction between these nodes. And that's extremely powerful. So I bet my money, like everything I got on the tokenization, the revolution, it's going to change everything that we do. All the financial world will change, and the way we actually assess, interact with the system will be I would say virtually tokenized.
Okay, thank you very much.
Crypto economics, basically.
This was a very comprehensive answer. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I think we have time to take one more question. I believe the gentleman here. Very briefly, please. Thank you.
Thanks very much. My name is André Dutry. I'm retired, so I'm not a businessman today. But if really the blockchain should reach 99% of the population, what impact will it have on energy consumption? So that's basically my question.
So the current blockchain, if it's measured from energy perspective, it can burn the planet, literally. Like the planet can turn into flame. Because in order to get the current blockchain to cover the whole planet, that means every Satoshi would be equal $1 US. That's the price of the planet today. And with that, anybody with an Excel spreadsheet, they can run the math and see how much the actual price would be and per mining. And then the mining itself can literally burn the planet. I'm not metaphorically speaking. It can burn the planet, can set it in flame. However, what's being worked on is methods that they depend in a consensus mechanism on also certain fundamentals of physics that they are the speed of light in order to decentralize the aspects of validation of those transactions. And from that perspective, the impact is hugely positive on the planet because the current burn of JP Morgan, for example, is 1 Hiroshima per day. So I talked about the miners. When I criticize anything that has to do with Bitcoin or with Ethereum, it's because those are the two best blockchains that are out there and we need to make them better. And we are making them better. And what's yet coming is enabling a company to run like JP Morgan with 99.999% more efficiency. Mark my words, 2023, you'll see it coming. And that's the impact on the planet from energy perspective. It's going to be phenomenal and it's going to be extremely efficient. Otherwise, it will not make it to be global.
Thank you. Sorry.
I'd like to add that from the energy perspective, you have to eliminate mining when it comes to running blockchain networks. This is the ultimate evil, the mining and using more power, using more technology, driving the valuations of the companies that are producing, the graphic cards and computers that are being used by the miners to get more bitcoins to mine more. This is all wrong. So I think, the ultimate consensus should come directly from human, from our own value.
Thank you.
That is not run by any machine.
So if you kill the miners, you're on the green side of blockchain. So I believe our speaking time has come to an end, I'm afraid. I thank you very much.
I just want to say one thing when we're saying eliminating miners, because many people in the audience, they're probably doing mining. It's extremely important because I want this guy to survive. We lost 2 executives in our company. Literally, they got shot. So
Really?
when we mean eliminate, they could be transformed to provide services. There's phenomenal amount of opportunities. They can make 10 times more money. Talk to me if you doubt that. We were able to prove that how you can make more money. So don't shoot this guy, please.
No, don't, please.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your presence and interest.